last time.
Let's get out of here now. Being a guinea pig is not for me. Damn straight, I don't ever want to see this thing again, ever. My whole life, it can go explode somewhere after we're gone, of course.
Hello, friends and meisters, welcome back to more 999. It looks like we've yet uncovered another new thing.
You know, speaking of experiments.
Santa suddenly stopped.
There was this experiment some scientists did with rats. First, they took a square C-shaped tank and filled it with enough water that the rats could drown. The tank has two exits, A and B. Exit A is pitch black, so dark even a rat can't see anything. Exit B, however, is electrified, which means the rats can't leave through it. So what would a rat do if it was put in this situation? Which exit would the rat choose? There was a moment of silence after Santa posed the question, and then Ace responded.
B, of course. The rat has no way of knowing that exit B is electrified.
Exactly. The rat goes to exit B. Of course, like I said, it's electrified, which means the rat can't get out that way. So after a lot of trial and error, the rat finally finds exit A.
I can't see that's very interesting or relevant. It's simply the story of a laboratory experiment.
You're right, it isn't a very interesting story. Yet. These scientists repeated this experiment over and over, using hundreds of different rats over several generations. This produced some surprising results. With each generation of rat, they took less time to find the correct exit. Eventually, a rat was put in the tank who instantly chose exit A without even attempting to go to exit B.
This is more of that theory we were talking about with Lotus, I think.
But even that wasn't the most impressive thing. The same experiment was conducted in another laboratory, far from the original one, with the same results. No, on second thought, the results weren't really the same. The rats in the second experiment began the trials with significantly faster times than the first rats in the initial experiment. These rats were not related to the rats used in the first experiment and never come in contact with them, and yet they all easily found their way to exit A, as though they'd already known. What did it mean?
Are you suggesting something like telepathy? We're passing information to one another through some undetectable medium?
Ace looked skeptical. Santa snorted at him. How the hell would I know? I'm not any kind of scientist. I don't know what made him do that. But I do know that story's true. You got another explanation? I'd sure love to hear it. Come on, let's get going. There's still a lot we haven't checked out here. We gotta get the hell out of this place before June passes out. Without waiting for a response, he turned around and started walking. Junpei, however, wasn't quite ready to leave the topic alone. Hey, wait! There's something I want to ask you. Santa stopped and turned around. Why did they use that tank for the experiment? Huh? Well, I mean, it seems like you could conduct the same experiment without the water. You could have just used a dry box, you know? If they needed to motivate the rats to escape, they could have, I don't know, put some bait by exit B or something. I mean, do they really have to make it so the rats can drown? Santa gave him a grim bark of a laugh. You know, the word emergency comes from the same root as the word emerge. You ever think about that? That's an interesting way to look at it. Well, an emergency is something urgent, often something dangerous. And to emerge means to sort of come out, or appear, or rise out of something else. So what's going to emerge in an emergency? Inspiration. Inspiration? Yeah. Think about it. When the chips are down, either you crack or your mind focuses and pulls up what you need. So in an emergency, your real potential emerges? Is that what you're trying to say? Yeah. That's why the rats had to drown. They had to be in danger. They had to be in an emergency for inspiration to emerge. That's also kind of interesting. It explains why the nonary game exists. Junpei suddenly felt cold. The back of his head was aching and his stomach felt strange. Because that's what makes me really think of, that the nonary game is some way to increase this telepathy, to make it come out, as we've found from the previous endings. Anyhow, Meisters, we will see you at the next new part or new thing that we discover. Zoom, zoom, zoom.
The GameStop strikes yet again.
We didn't have parents. They bought it in an accident when we were still kids. So I had to be like her dad. And that meant that I bought her Christmas presents every year. On Christmas Eve, I'd leave the present next to her pillow. And the next morning, she'd come run into my room with this big smile. Look! Santa left me a present! Santa got me that doll I really wanted! I'm so glad that he got me the letter, or got the letter I wrote! I was the one who told her to write those letters. I'd say, write down something you want and mail it to Santa. The address I gave her was somewhere in Northern Europe that doesn't exist. Anyway, she'd write the letter and stamp it and send it out. And then a few days later, it'd show up back in our mailbox, marked, address unknown. I'd open a letter before she figured out they'd been sent back. Inside the letter, I'd go around to a couple stores with some money I'd saved, up over a year, and buy her the stuff she'd asked for. It took a lot of savings, but I managed to buy her presents every year.
Oh, that's heart-wrenching. Junpei was silent. He could think of nothing to say. June looked down, uncomfortable. The wall next to him suddenly groaned. Either he hadn't heard the sound or didn't care. Santa kept talking.
But one year, her letter was different. She didn't write a list of toys she wanted or anything like that. Instead, it said, I don't want any presents this year. Instead, I want you to make my wish come true. My wish is that we'll be happy like this for a really, really long time. But I couldn't make that wish come true. Some Santa I am.
Santa looked sad. Junpei had never seen him look sad before. He wasn't sure he liked it. Junpei decided it was probably best not to ask Santa any more questions. But what happened? June glanced up at Santa quickly as she spoke. He answered, but only with an effort.
She died. She was killed 9 years ago.
Oh. There was nothing Junpei could say. His heart felt like a great lump of lead. Almost as if it broke, too. June bit her lip and looked away. Her face was pale.
All right, let's go.
Santa stood up suddenly, his downcast demeanor gone. He shoved a picture back into his pocket and headed back up the stairs, taking them two at a time. Junpei and June looked at one another. There was nothing they could think of to say.
So what are you two doing? Let's get moving. Come on.
Santa's voice echoed across the room from up above them. They nodded and followed him quickly up the stairs. Ace was waiting for them at the top. He was leaning against the handrail. He looked very tired. And I think that's the end of the new stuff. So we'll see you at the next point. A zoom, zoom, zoom. And we're back, Meisters, with more new things. Just then, Junpei heard a noise. He spun around just in time to see June collapse in front of the fence. Oh no, not again. June, are you okay? She did not respond. Junpei spun back around to face Ace. I'm sorry, I gotta go check on her. You do the box thing, alright? Just put the cards in the boxes. I'm counting on you. He shoved the cards into Ace's hands and ran off towards June. Are you alright? What happened? Junpei called out to her as he ran. Don't tell me she touched the fence or something stupid. As he ran, June was climbing to her feet with Santa's help. I'm sorry. I'm fine. I just tripped. Don't give me that. Now's not the time. But it's true. I tripped over a box. Junpei put his palm on her forehead. Her temperature was much the same as it had been the last time he checked. She wasn't hot, like she'd been before, but she was still warm. Her fever wasn't completely gone. I saw her fall. I think she really did just trip on something, you know? Junpei would have been more willing to agree if June hadn't been quite so much help, or needed quite so much help standing up. Still, to fall down like that, I think she's probably still a little messed up. June was doing her best to busy herself brushing dust off of her dress. Her smile looked a little embarrassed and her face was a bit flushed, but she did look a great deal better than she had been. Still. Alright, well, let's get out of here as fast as we can, so we can get you to a hospital. Oh, I don't think it's anything that serious. I just need a little medicine and some sleep and I'll be fine.
Medicine? Medicine, huh? Well, we could get in touch with anyone outside. I'll bet Ace could swing that for you. Easy. Ace? Why? Huh? Don't you know? He's the president of a pharmaceutical company. Oh no! Credo Pharmaceutical is the name, I think. No. Their flagship product is an anesthetic drug called Saporil. Saporil? Saporil? Junpei couldn't shake the feeling that he'd heard about Saporil before. Santa continued. Saporil. Saporil is an anesthetic that is gaseous at room temperature, similar to nitrous oxide. It takes only a few seconds to spread, and even a small amount is very effective. For those reasons, it's found widespread acceptance with police and military forces in numerous countries. It was an effective crowd suppressant and room clearer, and is practical, ethical, and humane. Developed 6 years prior, it was made from the extracts of several different roots. It became popular almost as soon as it was made public, with many governments placing large orders. Demand for Saporil skyrocketed, and as it did, so did the stock of Cradle Pharmaceuticals. Why do you know all this? Santa's information was interesting, but Junpei couldn't help but feel a little suspicious. Santa's reply was blunt and simple. I heard it from the old man himself. From Ace? When? By the number 4 door at the central stairway, when we were searching the second classroom. Remember how Snake 7 and you went to door 5? I asked him what he did for a living, and he said he ran his own company. After that, we just started talking, and I guess it just came up, you know? Are you worried about something? No, nothing. As he spoke, Junpei looked over towards Ace. He seemed to be having difficulty with the 9 boxes. What the hell is he doing? He turned back to June and Santa. June, don't push yourself, all right? Yes. Santa, could you take care of her? Sure. He gave them both a short nod, then turned and headed towards Ace. What are you doing? Ace's back was to him as Junpei approached. The older man turned around to look at him. His face was pale and covered in sweat. What happened? Nothing. My vision has gotten rather blurry. I think perhaps because of fatigue. I can't see very well at the moment. What can't you see well? These pictures. Ace held the cards out to Junpei, splayed out in the shape of a fan. I don't care to admit it, but I may be developing presbyopia. Growing old is a difficult thing. He made the best attempt he could at self-deprecating smile, but his face was flushed and his lips were pale and drawn. At any rate, I'll leave the rest to you. I'm feeling awfully tired, so if you don't mind, I'd like to rest for a bit. He shoved the cards into Junpei's hand and walked away quickly. Junpei looked at him quizzically. How could simply looking at the cards have tired him out? Strange. Junpei looked down at the cards in his hands. All the pictures were quite clear and each person easily recognizable. Was Ace's vision truly so bad? But if it wasn't, what made him so uncomfortable? That was when Junpei remembered what he'd heard from Lotus much earlier. Prosopagnosia. Well, put simply, it means a condition where the mind can't distinguish between human faces. In other words, my face would look the same as Clover's or even yours. They can't remember faces, which is how most people recognize each other. That means that people with prosopagnosia have trouble recognizing even people they're truly close to. That would make sense, actually. Maybe he's got prosopagnosia. Junpei took another look at Ace. He sat at the base of the stairs, looking quite depressed. It was reasonable, of course, that he'd feel that way. If he really did have prosopagnosia, there was no doubt it was a depressing and painful experience. Still, Junpei didn't feel like patting him on the shoulder and telling him everything would be alright. Would help him that much, because it won't. That don't change. Still, Junpei felt perhaps it was best that he keeps Ace's condition to himself, at least for the time being. Oh well. Doing his best to clear his mind from the task at hand, he turned back towards the boxes. It was time to solve this puzzle, damn it. Yeah, and that's the end. So zoom to another section that we've yet to visit. Friends Meisters, it seems we're at another crossroads of new happenings, says the fast forward button at least. Junpei and June ran to the large hospital room together. As quickly as they could, they searched around and under the beds and in the corners. She's not here. No, she isn't. All right, just in case, we should go take a look in the shower room. The shower room? That's where her brother is. She might have gone to see him. June bit her lip. She knew, as Junpei did, that there was only one thing to see in the shower room, and it wasn't pleasant. Well, we might as well go check, right? Let's go. There was a screwdriver stuck between the door and the frame. Junpei and June slipped through the door, moved down the hallway, and stepped into the shower room. No luck. Yeah, I didn't think she's here. June's voice was faint and she placed her hands over her mouth. Her face looked a little green. The stench in the room was almost unbearable. It had grown far more unpleasant since her last visit. Oh yeah, the body would have had time to ripen up after all. If Junpei had eaten a lunch, he would have had difficulty retaining it. He wanted to leave the room as soon as possible, but he had to be sure. And the only way to be sure was to check the other side of the divider. Wait here. June offered no resistance and nodded weakly to Junpei as he headed around the divider. He stopped at the corner and turned his head. As he'd expected, Clover was nowhere to be seen. The only thing on the other side of the divider was a dead body, lying in a reddish-brown pool of dry and drying blood. There are many ways a man can die, but this. His skull was shattered. They had little more than a pulpy mass of brain, bone, and viscera. The left arm was hideously twisted into a horrific alien shape, the bright white of the Yulia shining through the remains of skin and muscle. Huh? Wait. Bright white? Yulia? Bones? The pieces fell into place. Junpei remembered something Clover had told him in the laboratory. My brother's left arm is, it's like a normal person's arm. Or not. The accident hurt him really bad. To save him, they had to cut his arm. Of course. Why hadn't he realized it earlier? Clover had told Junpei that Snake's left arm was prosthetic. Right, that's what I've been saying. But the left arm of the corpse behind the divider was quite clearly a real human arm, or at least it had been once. That meant the corpse. It could only be fake. Junpei and June headed back towards the large hospital room. They stepped through the door and out of the shower room. Down the hallway they went, searching for Clover in every corner. They had reached the stairs when Seven appeared breathless and yelling. Junpei! June! Where were you guys? He looked pale and his face was drawn. Something terrible had happened. Junpei's breath caught in his throat. Did something happen? Seven drew a shaking hand across his face and gulped down a breath of air. Clover's dead! I found her in the first class bathroom. No, so our initial suspicions from the knife ending were true? Dead or missing, and in this case, dead. All sound ceased for Junpei. The world was an empty, muffled expanse. Then he began to hear his own breathing. Oh, and she's been stabbed as well. June's mouth moved, but he heard nothing. She tried once more, and then her energy was gone, and she collapsed against the wall. He could have helped her, but he hadn't, and now she was dead. As he stood there, frozen in place. Clover, why? Why had this happened? He forced his body to move. Each step felt like another nail pounded into his heart. Finally, it was in front of her. He knelt and placed 3 fingers against Clover's neck. No pulse, no breath. But she was still warm and her eyes were closed peacefully. It would have been easy to think she was asleep. Easy, that is, were it not for the slow expanding puddle of blood beneath her. So she was only killed recently then. He traced its source back to her. A gash just beneath her shoulder blade. Was the weapon a knife, perhaps? If it was a knife, the killer had taken it when they left. When he closed his eyes, he saw Clover's smile, her innocent smile, damn it, her energy. He would never see her smile again. He could have done something, he could have helped her.
His stomach twisted itself into a sickening knot. Junpei lifted a limp June from the floor and carried her from the bathroom. No. Are you alright? It was a foolish question, and he knew it. Yes, I think so. Her voice was weak. The fever had gone down, but the emotional scars she received were not likely to recede as quickly. Junpei laid his hand over her shoulder, or on it, and they walked back to the bedroom. You should get some rest. He lowered June until she was sitting against the bed. She nodded once and stared at the floor. There were 4 others in the room. Ace, Lotus, Santa, and Seven. They all stared at nothing, their faces drawn and tired. After a while, they drifted into the bathroom to see Clover's corpse themselves. Once everyone was back in the bedroom, Junpei walked slowly to the center of it and looked around as the slumped figures gathered there. Who was the first to find the body? Me! Seven spoke from behind Junpei. He turned around. Seven's hand was up. Why'd you come out to this room? To look for Clover. Why else? I found a body in the bathroom. As soon as I did, I ran outside. I got to the top of the stairs by the casino and yelled as loud as I could. Hey guys, I found her, but it's bad. She's in the bathroom in the first class cabin. Come quick. Or something like that. Now, I went back to the bathroom. Ace, Santa, and Lotus showed up real soon after that. But I guess you two hadn't heard me, or something, because you didn't show. So I took off down the stairs to look for you. After that, I mean, you know the rest, right? Junpei nodded and closed his eyes. There was one more thing he needed to ask. Seven, there's one more thing I'm worried about. What's that? When we finished all the puzzles in this room and got the door open, you stuck one of those plates in between the door and the frame, right? Why'd you do that? Come on, didn't I already tell you that? I did so the door wouldn't lock, so we could come back to this room. Oh! You think I did it? Well, I don't know. That kind of depends on what you say, doesn't it? Seven sighed and shook his head. Follow me. There were 2 doors standing next to one another. He opened the one to the right. Behind the door was a closet. Seven stepped inside. Oh, right, we couldn't open that stupid safe earlier. He stood in front of one of the shelves that filled it, and gestured towards a small box. The box was a small metal cube. He looked at Junpei. This is the reason. This safe. We couldn't open it when we were getting through the room. I figured there might be something pretty important in it. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Besides, I figured eventually we might find out what the numbers are on for the safe. If we did, I didn't want to screw around with door 5 again. So I put that plate in the exit door so we could get back in that way. You get it now? Junpei nodded and looked at the safe. A reasonable conclusion. He grabbed the handle and shook it. Not opening, it seems. Nothing happened. It was as locked as it had been when Seven found it. There was one change, however. Just underneath the safe was a pile of fine reddish-brown powder. Rust. Junpei stared at it for a moment. Had someone opened the safe, dislodging the rust? That is a good question. Junpei left the closet. Seven followed him back to the bedroom. It was cold and quiet. No one spoke. They sat frozen in place by shock and grief and fatigue. The room felt tiny and oppressive, and the thick metallic smell of blood filled the room. Junpei turned and headed for the living room. Anything to get out of there. There was some other clue, perhaps. Anything that might lead to whoever had stabbed Clover. He took his time and examined the room carefully. His eyes caught on the door. The door that led to the passageway of door number 5. Behind the door was the dead body of the 9th man. Maybe I should have another look at it, just in case. Quietly, he pushed open the door. The smell hit him like a blow to the face. His lungs contracted, unwilling to inhale such fetid air? Putrid? I thought it'd be putrid, but I guess that works. Acid boiled up from the base of his stomach, turning what little food was in there into a violent froth. It was too much for him, and he vomited. A thin stream of yellow water and bile splattered across the floor. He wiped his mouth weakly and stared at the dead body. Chunks of torn flesh lay in an arc around the body. What remained of its intestines had spilled onto the floor like spaghetti. The pool of blood that framed it was half dry, but so thick that it had taken on a texture not unlike that of an egg yolk, prepared sunny side up. On the floor next to the broken mass of the man's head lay his glasses, cracks spidering across the lenses. The bloodstains near them had already dried like scabs on the floor. That was when he noticed. It's gone! His bracelet! I knew it! I knew it! I was right in assuming that. It's gone! It had been there when Junpei had gone through door 5 before. He was sure of it, right next to the glasses. But now... it was gone. The number 9 bracelet was gone. But why? All towards that theory, my friends. That theory of mine, I think, at least. Had someone taken it? He was turning it over and over in his mind when he heard Seven's voice. "Ah! Where'd Junpei go?" He had drifted out to him from the living room. Junpei walked slowly out of the hallway. "Oh, there you are! Were you looking for something in the hallway?" Seven looked up as Junpei entered his room. "Did you find something?" He thought for a moment before he responded. "No, nothing." Technically, it wasn't a lie. He hadn't found anything in a way. In fact, that was the problem. Something he expected to find hadn't been there. The 9th man's bracelet. "What's up?" Well, I wanted you to take a look at something." "What is it?" Seven led Junpei back to the bathroom. As Clover's corpse came into view, he felt his heart flip and then fall to the bottom of his stomach. Something between a sigh and a groan escaped his lips. "What was it you wanted to show me?" His voice was hollow and empty. "I searched Clover's body again. I found this." As he spoke, he moved around Clover's head, then knelt down and flipped over her right hand. Or flipped open. Okay, some sort of paper? What? She was holding a piece of paper. "I haven't actually looked at it yet. Didn't want to disturb the crime scene, you know. Basic stuff." Huh, he is supposed to be a cop. "Well, I did borrow one thing." He wasn't sure what that meant, but it likely didn't matter. The paper's more important right now. He picked it up and carefully opened it. There were 2 sentences written on it. "Truth had gone! Truth had gone! Truth had gone! Now Truth is asleep in the darkness of the sinister hand." What is this? Some kind of secret code? Seven peered over Junpei's shoulder at the note. Junpei stepped away from Clover's body and into the living room. He began to pace, attempting to decode the note in his mind. The first clue was likely the phrase "sinister hand." Sinister hand means... well, what it makes me think of first is the word sinister means left in Latin, so they could mean left, or in this case probably the left hand. But taking this one step further, we can even look at the terms for right and left-handed. Right-handed is dextral, whereas left-handed is sinistral. From either thinking, we can assume that it's probably the left hand, and that is my final answer, game. Sinister hand was a term used in heraldry that meant to the left of the bearer of a coat of arms. Heraldry. Bleh, I cannot speak today, apparently. The left hand. The left hand. What did the left hand mean? Junpei looked at his own left arm. At the bracelet on his wrist. Did the darkness of the sinister hand have something to do with the bracelets? He examined the bracelet closely. There were 2 protrusions on either side of the face. The left and right sides of the face, in fact. Left and right. Left and right. Left and right. Truth is gone. Truth. Gone. It sounded funny. What did it mean? Truth. Gone. Maybe these 2 words. Well, those really make sense. Okay, well, what else could they mean, Junpei? What else? What else could gone and truth mean? Truth, of course, meant something that was correct. Something that was a fact, in other words. Something that was right. It would follow then what gone meant, left. After all, someone left, they were gone. In this case, however, they clearly refer to their directional homonyms. So that means... truth equals right. Gone equals left. That seemed to make sense. Junpei looked at the bracelet again. At the two protrusions on the left and right of the face. Junpei. Press them in the following order. You know what? That note probably has something to do with this and what Junpei just said. Because going from said note, we would assume it would be right, left, right, left, right, left. And we can assume so from utilizing the truth is gone and the sinister hand at the end of the note, which would be left. Oh, it's done something. I don't know what the hell, though. Please don't explode. One after another, 8 numbers flashed on and then off of the face of Junpei's bracelet. He checked once more, just to be sure. That's strange. 1 4 3 8 3 4 2 1. 1 4 3 8 3 4 2 1. Ah! Hey, wait, what are those numbers? Junpei didn't answer. He couldn't answer. He didn't know. He had no idea what they were either. Besides, he was sure he would forget the numbers and the order they came in if he said anything. 1 4 3 8 3 4 2 1? Could they be a code to something? Muttering the numbers to himself over and over again, Junpei headed towards the bedroom. 1 4 3 8 3 4 2 1. 1 4 3 8 2. I can't even. 1 4 3 8 3 4 2 1. 1 4 3 8 3 4 2 1. Looks like I'm not the only one thinking it's a code to something. Right on you, Junpei. Try it away. For long, he found himself in front of the safe again. Its lock was the only device he could think of that required a sentence of numbers, or sequence, such as the ones he just discovered. Besides, someone had opened the safe at least once already. Had Clover come to the bedroom to open it? 1 4 3 8 3 4 2 1. Junpei slowly dialed in the numbers that Bracelet had given him. 1 to the right, 4 to the left, 3 to the right, 8 to the left, 3 to the right, 4 to the left, 2 to the right, and 1 to the left. Finished. When we heard a click, Junpei heard the small telltale sound of a lock opening. He grabbed the handle and took a deep breath and pulled it up. Some sort of piece of paper? Inside was a piece of paper. It was roughly the same size as the one Clover had been holding. Junpei picked it up. This is what it said. Fact 1. The Nonary game was played once before 9 years ago, which we know. The person with the number 2 bracelet attended the game 9 years ago. Fact 3. It was planned by the following 4 people. Cradle Pharmaceutical CEO, Gentaro Honogo, Cradle Pharmaceutical Chief of Staff, Nagisa Najisaki, Cradle Pharmaceutical R&D Supervisor, Teruoki Kobuta, majority shareholder in Cradle Pharmaceutical, Kagechika Masoshido, I think. I must punish them for the innocent lives they sacrificed. This is the only warning they will receive. That innocent souls might be saved, I now state the truth. 0. So Zero's some sort of vigilante? Junpei left the closet. There were 5 people waiting for him in the bedroom. Ace, Lotus, Santa, Seven. So 4 of these people have to be these people, maybe? And June. He looked at each one of them in turn, then slowly placed his hands in the pockets of his vest. Sorry, but do you think you could all come with me? Come with you? I want you all to go to the big hospital room. Why? There's something I want to be sure of. What do you want to be sure of? I want to know if the person I suspect is really the culprit. Wait, then, you're saying? Yeah, I think I've got it figured out. And who killed Snake and Clover? The atmosphere of the room changed. Grief was suddenly gone, replaced by attention like a strap of leather stretched to its limits. 5 sets of eyes stared at Junpei. He pretended not to notice. Anyway, if you could all please move to the big hospital room, that'd be much appreciated. I'll explain everything as soon as we get there, promise. Then almost if on cue, the bell began to ring. They all heard it. It was the bell from the clock in the main staircase. That means more times passed. Not good. The bell rang 5 times and ceased. It was 5 o'clock. They had only an hour left. We don't have a lot of time left. Let's go. Slowly, one by one, they followed Junpei out of the bedroom. Actually, before you get started, I was hoping you could do something for me. Junpei stopped in front of the door of 3 and turned around. A7 and Lotus, could you please place your palms on the red? Why? If we need to get to the shower room, why don't we just... No, we're not going inside. Once you've authenticated, step away from the door. Why? Please, just do it. Or perhaps you don't want to know who killed Snake and Clover. Junpei's implication was clear, and Seven understood perfectly. Fine. How about you, Ace and Lotus? Very well. Sure. Quickly, they pressed their palms onto the red. Once they had finished, they stepped away from the door as Junpei instructed. 3 asterisks shone from the red's display panel. Junpei approached it and held his bracelet over the scanner. He made quite sure he didn't place his palm on it, and instead only brought his bracelet near it. The 4th asterisk appeared. Just as Junpei had expected, it was possible to authenticate without placing one's palm on the red, so long as the bracelet was near it. Junpei pulled the lever down. I did theorize that the wearer didn't have to be alive, and this would be a way of sort of confirming that they wouldn't have had to carry their hand around, literally. Door 3 opened like a hungry mouth. A long 9 seconds passed. And the door shut. Unfed. Junpei walked slowly back to the others, who were waiting some distance from the door, talking to one another. Santa and June had joined them as well. It looked as though they hadn't found a chance to break into the conversation yet. As Junpei approached, they turned to look at him, curiosity playing on their faces. Before long, the other 3 did as well. Clearly, they were all expecting some answers. Thanks! I appreciate your cooperation. Clearly, they'd hoped for something more forthcoming. He continued. By the way, Ace, would you mind if I asked you something? What is it? Do you know who I am? What? What kind of question? Just answer it, please. Who am I? You're Junpei, of course. Who else would you be? Unfortunately, that's the wrong answer. Actually, I'm Santa. What? Ace's voice was full of surprise, but it was also tinged with confusion and fear. Everyone else looked nearly as surprised. Santa looked especially shocked to discover he was actually someone else. If he spoke, however, the trap would be exposed. Junpei quickly continued. The clothes I'm wearing, I borrowed from Junpei. The clothes he's wearing are mine. We had a little swap. That's ridiculous. Impossible. So you're saying I'm not Santa? Of course you aren't. Why? What makes you so sure I'm not Santa? If you were Santa, then door 3 wouldn't have opened for us just now. 1 plus 7 plus 8 plus 3 equals 19. 1 plus 9 would be 10. The digital root would be 1. The 4 of us would have just opened door 3. You can't possibly be Santa. Your bracelet number isn't 3. It's 5, right? Only then, when it was too late, did Ace realize his mistake. He set his jaw and glared at Junpei. You're exactly right. My bracelet number is 5. As he spoke, Junpei lifted his wrist up to show everyone the bright red 5 on his wrist. Sorry, Ace. I tricked you. Of course I'm not really Santa. I'm Junpei. You could possibly think I was. It's obvious I'm not. To think I was is ridiculous. But I guess you couldn't see just how obvious it was. I asked you before, didn't I? What makes you so sure I'm not Santa? And you answered. If you were Santa, then door 3 wouldn't have opened for us just now. Most people wouldn't say something like that. As their justification for why I'm not Santa, I mean. The first thing that would come to mind, to anyone else's mind, wouldn't be the bracelet number. There'd only be one thing they'd say. One sentence. You don't have his face. Ace, you have prosopagnosia, don't you? Junpei's voice was quiet and calm. He knew the truth, so did Ace. He could hear a sudden buzz of conversation from the others. Prosopagnosia? What's that? He heard Lotus begin to explain it to them. Ace glanced at them, then turned back towards Junpei and sighed. Very well. I confess. I have prosopagnosia. I cannot differentiate human faces. Is that what this was about? You want to mock me for my disorder? No, not at all. I'm not making fun of you at all. In fact, I feel kind of bad for you. Well, the reason I brought this up is that there's an excellent chance the person who killed Santa has prosopagnosia, or a snake. Ace's face tightened, his eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Junpei leaned casually against the iron piping of one of the beds. I'll just come out with it. I think it was you, Ace. You killed him. Junpei was suddenly very aware of the 5 pairs of eyes on him. He had their undivided attention now. The room had grown very, very quiet. Junpei took a deep breath. That's ridiculous. What possible evidence do you... I have 3 pieces of evidence. The first, think back to a few hours ago. You made us argue over the 3 doors here in the big hospital room. There's no way all 7 people could go through them. Lotus suggested that we sacrifice one of us. Lotus looked away awkwardly. Junpei glanced at her and continued. And you, Ace, said, I'll stay here. Why would you say something like that? It's pretty simple, really. You didn't want us to see the dead body in the shower room. You see, if Ace stayed behind, there were only 2 doors the rest of us could go through. Doors 7 and 8. There's no way we could get through door 3, the shower room. You knew that, didn't you, Ace? That's why you volunteered to stay behind. Come on now, I think that's going a bit far. I can understand if you're jealous of my bravery, but please don't devalue my actions. I only wanted to save the rest of you. Surely you can understand my altruism. Altruism, huh? Junpei started off into the darkness at something very interesting, and lazily began to dig a persistent bit of wax out of his ear. You already knew, didn't you? You knew that whichever door we took, we'd eventually end up back in this big hospital room. What on earth are you saying? Of course I didn't know. How could I have? Really? Yes. Bleeding was not something they'd heard from Ace before. Strange. Junpei pulled the piece of wax from his ear, glanced at it, and flicked it off into the darkness. Oh well, that's cool. I've still got 2 more pieces of evidence that say you're the killer. The second is that, as I said earlier, you have prosopagnosia. Then you mean to imply that a person who can't distinguish human faces must be a bad person? Junpei, you prejudiced bastard. No, I'm not that stupid. Then why? Well, before I explain, I suppose there's something I should tell you. The corpse in the shower room, it's not Snake's. What? What? Ace's face went pale. The others looked confused as well. The body wasn't Snake's. I didn't put it together right away, but there was something Clover told me. She said that Snake's left arm was prosthetic. He'd lost his real arm in an accident. But the body we saw in the shower room, let's call him Guy X. Guy X's left arm was definitely flesh and blood. In other words, Guy X couldn't possibly have been Snake. Oh God, no, that's impossible. Ace had started muttering deliriously to himself, shaking his head back and forth. I guess their theory was right, but Junpei did add some stuff to it. Junpei was long past caring. Let's say, hypothetically, that the killer didn't have prosopagnosia. If that were the case, he would immediately realize that Guy X wasn't Snake. Even if the clothes were the same as Snake's, their faces would be completely different. It would have been obvious they weren't different people, or they were. And yet, they still killed him. Why? Why would they kill a stranger who'd only just shown up? On the other hand, if the killer did have prosopagnosia, it makes sense. They thought Guy X was Snake and killed him. Wait, just a moment. Let's say you're right and I mistook Guy X for Snake. Even if I did, I would have no motive to kill him. Why would I want to kill Snake? I can think of at least 2 motives, actually. One, Snake knew about your past. If he had revealed what he knew, that would have been really bad for you. You really didn't want that to happen. So, to make sure Snake's mouth stayed shut, you killed him. 2, Snake had a grudge against you. You knew that, or at least you could have easily assumed he did. Even without exposing your identity, he was a threat to you. You never knew when you might be attacked. You couldn't ever let your guard down. Every moment was a moment he might try something. You didn't want that kind of danger hanging over you, so you... Hey, hold on a minute. For the first time since the beginning of Junpei's explanation, someone besides Ace spoke. What's the past that Ace wouldn't want us to know? Why did Snake have a grudge against him? Look at this. He handed Santa a small piece of paper. Santa squinted at the paper and began to read. The number game was played once before, 9 years ago. Which we do know Snake was a part of, what Clover told us. The person with the number 2 bracelet attended the game 9 years ago. It was planned by the following 4 people. Cradle Pharmaceutical CEO, Kentaro, Hongo, and the rest. But the number 2 bracelet would be Snake's. What is this? Slowly, Santa looked up from the paper. His eyes met Junpei's. It's the message from Zero. It was in the safe in the first class cabin. Then suddenly... Give me a break! Ace's face was red and shaking. His voice was full of fury tinged with desperation. That paper is a lie. Someone is trying to frame me. Me? You said me, right? Junpei's eyes narrowed. The trap began to close. Ace inhaled sharply. His eyes flicked off of Junpei to anything else. Wouldn't that mean that you're admitting you're Hongo, the CEO of Cradle Pharmaceutical? Or am I mistaken? It was as though a switch had been flipped. The color drained from Ace's face as soon as he realized what he'd done. His eyes went wide. Very well. I admit that much. I am certainly the CEO of Cradle Pharmaceutical, Gentaro Hongo. So what if I am? I don't know anything about this notary game that supposedly took place 9 years ago. Everything on that scrap of paper is bullshit. Someone is trying to set me up, you see. First of all, Ace stammered as he tried desperately to work himself to a more tenable position. Junpei, you're claiming I did all this by myself. Think that over, am I right? How could I have killed Snake all by myself? Not Snake. It was Guy X. I don't care who it was. You said that killer put this other man into door 3, right? Yeah, maybe. But I couldn't have possibly done that alone. I couldn't have opened door 3 of only myself and Guy X. Nope, you couldn't have. You could have, actually. What? Ace's face was tight and his teeth were clenched. Junpei fixed him with a level stare. The trap was about to close. Actually, Ace, when you were unconscious, I took something from you. Remember when you were injected with that anesthetic and fell asleep in the big hospital room? Yeah, back then. I took this. Junpei put his hand in his pocket. No, you couldn't have. Ace's right hand moved. Junpei smiled. I got you, Ace. Your right hand there tells me all I needed to know. Want me to tell you we're so worried about? What's in your pocket? It's the number 9 bracelet, isn't it? Ace, Guy X, and the 9th man's bracelet. It was all you needed to open door 3. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's how you killed Guy X all by yourself, Ace. All you needed was the number 9 bracelet in your chest pocket. Ace lowered his hand from where it had stopped, halfway to his pocket. He looked down at the floor, his face hidden from Junpei. All he could see was the corner of Ace's mouth twitching like a dying fish. If you wanted to play innocent, that's fine by me. Go ahead, tell me I don't have the bracelet, if that's what you want to do. But if you could take off your coat and hand it to me, I'd really appreciate it. Otherwise, we'll have to take it from you by force. Right, Seven? Yeah! It'd be my pleasure.